Today's session is a demonstration of NVivo for Mac. I'll give a high-level overview of the capabilities of NVivo with a specific focus on conducting mixed methods analyses. Researchers are more frequently undertaking mixed methods projects, which allows them to take advantage of the strengths of both qualitative and quantitative data. Some common reasons to use a mixed methods approach include triangulation, or including multiple sources of data, answering different research questions that require different methods in the same project, or providing context to your research. NVivo is a tool that organizes qualitative and quantitative data and supports rigorous systematic analysis. Seamlessly integrate a variety of data, quantify qualitative data, and use variables to parse and ask questions of your qualitative data. You can import demographic data, bibliographic data, or other categorical information into NVivo for Mac. Organize surveys with both open and closed-ended questions, and use queries to isolate coding by variables or cross-tabulate attributes in coding. NVivo for Mac can handle many different data types. Import demographic data or surveys from spreadsheets, or connect directly with your SurveyMonkey, not with Mac. Import demographic data or surveys from spreadsheets, and you can also import libraries from bibliographic information from RefWorks, Zotero, EndNote, and Mendeley. For more information on using NVivo with bibliographic data and literature reviews, we invite you to review our literature review webinar, which is posted on our YouTube channel and also offered monthly. Once you have your data in NVivo, there are several tools that help you quickly get a sense of trends. The word frequency query helps you identify key words in the text. This word cloud is live to the data in NVivo, so you can easily explore how these terms are being used. In a few clicks, NVivo can visualize demographic data. This is a type of hierarchy chart known as a sunburst, which is similar to a pie chart. The inner ring is the age group of survey participants, and the outer ring shows the gender breakdown of each group. And in NVivo, this is a dynamic visualization, and you can click to zoom in so that you can see that you have more male than female participants in this age category. Hierarchy charts can also visualize coding. We're going to work with two types of quantitative information today: demographic data from interviewees, and a survey that contains both closed and open-ended data. I'll introduce case notes to start, which hold all of the information pertaining to a given unit of study in your project, or hold all of the open-ended responses from a particular survey participant. Cases are critical to linking interviews or open-ended survey questions with demographic information. If you have only one or two variables in which you're interested, sets are a simple and useful way to group together related data. However, if you have many variables, you can import demographic data from a spreadsheet. In NVivo, each variable is known as an attribute, and case classifications are used to organize attributes. I'll also import survey data, which you can do from a spreadsheet. And you can download your survey responses from an online survey tool such as SurveyMonkey or Qualtrics and import those data into NVivo. Then we'll go over how to prepare your survey for analysis. And throughout the webinar, I'll show you how to ask questions of your coding and your data using a variety of queries, and also explore how NVivo quantifies qualitative data, which you can then export and further analyze in statistical software. Next, we'll move into NVivo. All NVivo projects follow the same basic process, the first step of which is to gather data. From there, you can create an NVivo project and import those materials. Once in NVivo, you can analyze and explore your data using sophisticated coding and query functions, as well as create a beautiful visualization that helps you learn more about your data and communicate your findings to others. So I'm going to move into NVivo. This is a blank NVivo project, and we're going to be working with some sample data today from our sample project called Environmental Change Down East. So I'm going to start by bringing in some interview data. And I want to, these are conversations that have been recorded and transcribed, and I'm bringing these in. These are actually in the form of Word documents. And these data were all gathered after a period of economic expansion along coastal North Carolina in a particular geographic area known as Down East. So what NVivo is doing is bringing in each of those transcripts into my project. And everything that is imported into the NVivo project is housed within the .nvpx file extension. So that means that it's no longer connected with any external data. So any changes that you make in NVivo are in NVivo only. But it also means that it's very easy to move NVivo projects around, share them with colleagues. You can collaborate in NVivo for Mac. So you can send your projects to others, have them look at that project, merge projects together. So this is all, once you do your analyses, this is all something that NVivo can help you do. All right, should be finished in just a moment. So again, these are Word documents with that contain transcribed text. And once they come into NVivo, we're going to need to organize them. Once they come in, we're going to want to create a case node for each one of the respondents. So cases are used to organize data related to the units of study in your project. So I have an interview document for each one of my interview participants. So the conversation that was had between the interviewer and the interviewee is going to be in separate documents. So you can see that I have a document for Barbara's conversation, a document for Charles's conversation, and so on. So in this project, to start here, I'm going to consider my interview participants my unit of study. So we're almost there. I want to start to organize my data and prepare it for more sophisticated analysis by creating a case node for each one of my interview respondents. So I'm going to go ahead and create these as cases. And these are going to be housed down in my cases folder. So if I return to my interview real quick and show you what's in Barbara's interview, here I can see, it's a Word document. It's their conversation. When I open the case node, the entire conversation is coded there. So it might not make total sense to start why I'm creating a case node. It's an important step if you have demographic data, which I'll come back to. But another reason that cases are useful is they can gather together all pieces of data related to a given participant. So say, for instance, you've done a longitudinal study and you have multiple interviews with Barbara, or maybe you have photos with Barbara, survey responses from Barbara. So you can pull all those data together and keep them organized in one place. So right now I only have one interview for Barbara, and that's coded to her case node. If I'm only interested in a few variables, such as asking questions of my coding by gender, for instance, I can create a set. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new set. We'll call this female participants, and create a new set for male participants. And I want to go ahead, you'll see that I'll right click from time to time, and that's essentially either control click or two fingers down to right click. So I'm going to add to my female participant set. We've got Barbara, Dorothy, Helen, Margaret, and Susan. And I should have a set of male participants as well. And so what this allows me to do is consider them as a unit. So I can say, show me all of the places where my male participants talked about a particular topic. So it allows me to group, sets allow me to group project items together. So by putting this structure in place, I can easily compare coding by gender using a coding or matrix coding query, which I'll show a little bit later on. Another reason why cases are important, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, is because if you have demographic information about your participants or other categorical information about your units of study, you can add that information to your case nodes through case classifications. So you have an option of creating classifications from scratch within NVivo, or you can import a spreadsheet that contains this information. So I have a demographics. I have a spreadsheet in which I've been organizing my demographic information about my interviews. And I want to go ahead and bring that in. So I'm going to create a new classification. We'll call this interviews. And I do want to update the classification of existing cases. I've already created my case nodes. And then let's click next. And we're doing some formatting checking. Should be all set. So the key thing here is that the name that we have in the demographic sheet match exactly to what we have in our case nodes. So you'll notice a couple of things have happened here. Because the case node read Helen transcript rather than Helen, it created an empty case right next to it called Helen. Everything else matched up nicely. So you can see here that there's nothing coded to this empty case node. And you can check to see that it's classified by right-clicking on it. And this one here, because the name was different, has not been classified. So you want to make sure that the names of the cases match exactly the first column in your interviews. This is really easy to fix. I can copy and merge these together and delete the extra. Delete, there we go. I can do the same with Ken. Let's do that real quick. Copy and merge and delete the extra one. So I've got this demographic information here, and I want to start to visualize some trends. I'm just curious what's going on amongst my interviewees. It's not a very big sample size, but I can use something called a hierarchy chart to visualize demographic data. You can also visualize coding, but here we want to visualize attribute information for cases. So perhaps we want to see the education level breakdown by gender. And we can do that. So let's get a little bit more space here. So it opens as what's known as a tree map. So the tree map is showing me the larger the box, the more respondents fall into this category. I can also change what I'm looking at. So if I think this isn't very interesting, maybe I want to take a look at age range. Got a couple more variables there broken down by let's do gender again. So that's got a few more boxes. I can change how this looks and turn it into a sunburst. So again, a sunburst is kind of like a pie chart. And so I can see easily here that I'm missing a lot of data for my interviewees. So I might want to go back and get them. And I'm specifically missing age range data. And I can see, all right, so it's for some of my females and some of my males. And I can also check to make sure I'm getting a representative sample by looking at breakdown. Well, of my participants here, the information that I have, they're pretty much all age 40 to 49, and they're evenly split between male and female. So if that's important in my study, that's an easy way to visualize that. So I can also export this. I want to make sure I don't forget to tell you that you can take any visualization out of NVivo as a static image, but this is live to the data in NVivo. So if I wanted to see those cases that I had the information about, here's who they are. So now let's import some survey data. I'm going to return to my internals, and I want to keep myself organized, so I'm going to create an interviews folder. And I'm also going to create a survey folder and organize all of my interviews into my interviews folder and navigate to my survey folder and bring in my data. So in NVivo, if you have spreadsheet data or survey data that you've downloaded, that comes in as a data set. So that's NVivo jargon for any sort of tabular spreadsheet data. So here I've got my survey, and it's giving me a preview of how it looks. This is what I want to import, so I'm in a good place. Now it's doing some formatting checking. My first row contains my field names, my date format, and so on. Now NVivo is asking me to see if it's correct when it took an educated guess at what kind of data I had in each one of my columns. So in my first column, which contains my respondent IDs, this is indeed text, but it's not codable text. So it's not open-ended data. If it's quantitative data, or like a multiple choice question or an identifier, it's not something that's open-ended or free response. And in NVivo, we call that a classifying field. I can also choose not to import a field. So if I'm not interested in return date, I can leave that out. And as I scroll across here, it looks like, okay, I've got some multiple choice yes, no questions, but here I've got some open-ended questions. And these are free response, open-ended data, so they're qualitative, and we want to bring them in as a codable field. And then at the end, I've got some more demographic data that will come in as classifying data. I can rename it if I'd like. Otherwise, we'll just let it import. So this is how my survey data looks. So I've got it in NVivo, and you can see that the cells with some of the cells have the gray background. Those are my closed-ended quantitative questions, and some of the cells have white background, which are my open-ended data. So now I need to prepare my data for analysis. So the first thing that I need to do is create cases, just like I did for my interview data, and associate my closed-ended questions with those cases. So what it's going to do is, based on that respondent information, create a case node for each row or each respondent in my survey. And then it's going to associate the rest of the data in that row, the quantitative data, as a new case classification. So the first thing, I just have to tell NVivo which row contains the case names. That would be my respondent row. That's my unique identifier for each one of my respondents. Then I need to tell NVivo, okay, I have all of these free response open-ended questions. Where do I want to code all of these or just some of these? And I do indeed want to code all of them. Then it says, where do you want to put your cases? I'm going to put them under a new case called survey data. So it'll look like this off to the right-hand side. And then I tell it, yep, I do want to associate that closed-ended data. So it's going to create a new classification called survey data, and it shows me all of the attributes, and I can untick anything that I don't want to have associated with my data. So when I click auto code, it's going to do that task for me. And I will have a whole bunch of new, let me grab this. So it's sort of lost in a row here, but I can create organizational folders just like I did with my internals. But here are my survey data, and here are all of DE001's open-ended survey responses. So it didn't write very much. Perhaps this other person did. We can see what DE007 said, so they wrote a little bit more. I can check to make sure that the case nodes were successfully classified. In other words, that the quantitative data was associated with them. by looking at the classifications and navigate down to my classifications to see I do indeed have a new classification sheet. So what NVivo does is it separates the qualitative data and the quantitative data and puts them different places. And I can see here that I have a whole bunch of information about each one of my respondents. And just like with my survey data, I can explore that via hierarchy chart. So I actually want to this time take a look at my survey data, and I'm interested in, let's say, maybe we'll do age breakdown and gender amongst my survey respondents. So I can see this is a little bit more exciting. And I can change this. So it looks like I've got, rather than age group, I've just got straight up age. So I can be, maybe I want to see education level, and I can move this around. This is very much live to the data. So I can just see gender by education level and education level by gender and step through. The last thing that I need to do to prepare my survey data for analysis is to create a node for each open-ended column. So the reason we do that is because often the themes that you find in your survey data and each question, so that's essentially creating a node for each open-ended question. Often the themes that we find across questions may vary widely. So here I've got all of the responses to the question, the natural environment down east is listed here. And so I can go through and start coding. I actually want to code here and create a new node called positive. So I can manually code from my survey data or on the node itself. I can also get a quick sense of what's happening in my data by running a word frequency query. So a word frequency query will calculate the most frequently used words across all of my data. It has a built-in stop words list, so it's ignoring filler words. If I see anything that I want to add to that list, for instance, the word east is in the name of the place, so it's not particularly helpful that it's there. I can add it to the stop words list, rerun that query, and that word will be gone. I can also group stemmed words together, quickly get a sense of what people are saying across all of my data. This is when some of my organization comes into place. I can start to explore by different data types. For instance, what are people saying in my interviews versus my survey questions? So across all of my interviews. So here are the top words, and NVivo will also generate a word cloud, which is a nice visualization of that word frequency query. I can change this. Another way to explore my data is rather than looking at it by data type, I can quickly get a sense of what the most common themes are or commonly used words in a survey response by running a word frequency query. And in this case, I'm going to look specifically at what people are saying when asked the natural environment down east is fill in the blank. So when I rerun that query, you can see how those words changed. And the top word here is actually beautiful. I can run a text search query to get a sense of what people are saying in context by producing a word tree. Again, all of these visualizations are exportable. Once I've done a bit of coding, and I'm actually going to move into the sample project that's included with every download of NVivo because it has quite a bit more coding in it. But once I've done a bit of coding, I can use queries to explore how the coding for a topic or theme might differ depending on a particular variable. So I might be interested, so I can see here under, I can use, I've got a number of sets here. I can use a set and a matrix coding query. Hold on. Just a moment. Okay, I'll say cancel. Or I can use other attribute values that I've put in place. So for instance, if I wanted to compare by generations down east, so how long people have lived there and how they're talking about the economy, and I can rearrange these if I'd like. And this is coding that's been done manually in the project. So we've moved it to a separate project. NVivo will calculate the number of times that data meet those criteria. So you can see that a very popular topic amongst people who are new to the area is fishing or aquaculture. Same story with people who have been there for a long time. So I can explore, and the way to interpret this, by the way, is that there are 76 coding references or pieces of data that have been coded to fishing or aquaculture and said by somebody who's lived down east or whose family has for 3 or more generations. And I can open up the cell and take a look at the qualitative data. I can also change this to be the number of respondents. So this time I'm looking at, there are 67 respondents who were coded as discussing fishing or aquaculture and who have lived down east for 3 or more generations. You can also choose to export this table to Excel to further work with the data. So I'm going to move out of NVivo to tell you a little bit more about some licensing options and ways to get help on how to do things in NVivo. We do offer discounted student license for NVivo for Mac. These are full functionality, but limited to 12 months. You could also choose to purchase a full license. Full licenses are perpetual one-time purchase licenses for individuals. You can also choose to purchase an optional subscription, which entitles you to priority support and any new versions that are released during the term of your subscription. If there's a group of you at your organization that's interested in using NVivo, you might consider an enterprise license agreement. There are a number of benefits to being an ELA holder with us, including free access to new versions and priority support. If you'd like to try NVivo before you buy it, give our free trial a shot, which is available from our website, qsrinternational.com. So we want to make sure you're successful with your NVivo project. So to that end, we offer some paid training and free resources. On the paid training side, we offer on-site classroom workshops, which are typically 2 days long. Check out the event calendar on our website to see if we're coming to a city near you. If you have a group that's interested in learning NVivo, let us know. We're happy to set up a training. We also offer online courses at a beginner and more advanced level. These are self-paced and students receive a discount. We can also tailor a webinar training to meet your group's needs. And if you'd like to sit down with us to discuss your project, we're happy to set up an individual consulting session. On the free resources side, I unfortunately was not able to attach the handout to GoToWebinar due to a technical issue. However, if you would like a copy of the handout, I will provide some contact information at the end of today's webinar. But that handout does have links to everything I'm about to mention. We have a great YouTube channel with how-to videos and recordings of recent webinars. There's also a recording of this demo available on YouTube. Another great resource are user communities. We have a Facebook page, LinkedIn group, user forums, and an active Twitter community. These are a great place to interact with other NVivo users and get answers from one of our experts. Our online help documents are a really great place to get detailed information on how to do anything in NVivo, and keep an eye out on our online calendar for more free webinars. Our Meet NVivo series is a great way to get acquainted with the useful features in NVivo. So if you have a question, please send it over now. If you would like more information, please send us an email at americas@qsrinternational.com, and I do like to share Twitter information as well. If you're on Twitter, we'd love to connect with you. Our main Twitter handles at QSRint. They share news and updates, sometimes cool things that our users are doing with NVivo. Our support team is available through our website, qsrinternational.com, as well as through their Twitter handle. QSR Sup. And I'm at N. Wyman Roth. I like to answer questions, share tips and tricks, and basically do everything I can to support our NVivo users in their projects. So thanks so much for joining me this afternoon, and best of luck.